Okay, well, thank you very much for meeting us today, Mr. Dusil. So we'll get right into it, and we're hoping that you would be able to just introduce yourself a little and let us know how you got to be involved with visual media, or visual unity, sorry.
Okay, so my name is Gabriel Dusil, and I am head of marketing. I do marketing and strategy in Visual Unity. And I came here actually through 12 years of internet security and joined Visual 2 years ago to run marketing. My experience is actually 10 years in marketing and 10 years in sales across European, Middle East, and African markets. So I kind of bring that level of expertise in marketing and sales to the company. And they were looking for a marketing manager in order to help expand the company internationally and bring an international flavor to the Visual Unity portfolio.
Very nice. We're hoping you could just tell us a little bit about what Visual Unity actually is and what you guys do all around the world.
So we do a few things. One is that we have what's called an OTT platform. It's over the top. And what OTT is basically a platform that bypasses a traditional system such as broadcast, for example. So you're watching, let's say, television through a broadcast. That's the traditional linear television method. Over the top is everything that bypasses that. So basically when you're watching YouTube or you're watching Netflix or Love Film, for example, in the UK, then you're bypassing the broadcast services and you're watching video over the internet. So what we do in Visual is we build Netflixes. We build companies that want to have a Netflix in country and offer their content, maybe it's premium content or live content over the internet, and they need an infrastructure in order to deliver that, and they come to us for that. So OTT is one aspect to what we do. We also have a broadcast service, system integration capabilities, and there we offer OB vans, which is outside broadcast van. So if you know in the sports events where you have several cameras in filming a sports event, those cameras then feed into a van, which then consolidates that traffic, that video, and then sends it to the studio, what's called a contribution to the studio. So we can build OB vans, we can build studios, we offer equipment for sale as well. So we have a broadcast arm to our business as well as like an internet arm to our business as well.
So I know you said that you joined Visual Unity about 2 years ago now. So what have you found to be the hardest part in joining this new company?
Well, that's actually a good question. I think what the hardest part is. I think one of the things that is challenging is on a few fronts. One is that culturally we come from a project-based business. So Visual Unity was project-led in terms of servicing the broadcast industry, and we are transitioning now into a product-led company where our product, which is View Media, it's our OTT platform, requires a different mindset. In a project-led business, you basically win the project and then you allocate resources and then deliver on the project. In a product-led business, you basically develop the product first and then you sell it afterwards, right? So there's a different mindset in terms of how developers need to develop for a project versus a product. And when you start to transition a company into a product-led business, then you're basically building a solution without the revenue yet. You're building it so that it's ready for the market sometime in the future, and in the future you'll generate revenue. And that kind of mindset is a challenge. And part of my role is to build a marketing message around a product and help strategize around the roadmap for building that product. And then as one of the managers in the company, to help the culture of the company transition to a product-led organization. Yeah. So that's one of the challenges. Another challenge is that because I'm Canadian and I'm Slovak, I kind of see the Western way of doing business as well as the Eastern, let's say, way of doing business. And that's another challenge on a cultural basis, because I see what the expectations are in the West and what the competitors are doing in the West, and what the market is and how it's behaving on the Eastern side. One of the things I bring in terms of experience to the company is a thought leadership approach to marketing and sales. Because the companies that I worked for before, such as Motorola and VeriSign and SecureWorks, they were American companies, they were thought leaders, and they were positioning themselves as thought leaders. And I believe that one of the strengths that I could bring to Visual Unity was a thought leadership approach to OTT and broadcast services, and bring us up to, let's say, the pedestal of the Western market and compete directly with our Western counterparts.
Okay. Can you just explain a little this idea of thought leadership?
So thought leadership is companies that really see where the market is going into the future, right? So if you as a company and the leaders within the company see where the market is going in terms of broadcast, see where the market is going in terms of entertainment, and see where the market is going in terms of OTT, then you're building a solution that's in that direction. And if your clients buy into that vision and believe that your vision is part of where the future is going to happen, then they're more inclined to invest in the solutions that you have, right? So that leadership role kind of makes you become a trusted advisor with your clients. And as a trusted advisor, the more trusting in terms of the solutions that you are offering and the roadmap that you're building to deliver products and services to them as a client.
Okay, very nice. Now I know you mentioned culture, and I've always thought that culture is probably one of the most underrated and most valuable things when looking at your own business and where to expand and whatnot. So I was wondering, first off, when the two companies merged, Visual Unity and Visual Connect?
Visual Connection?
Yes.
Yeah.
What kind of steps did you guys take to merge the culture of the employees? And then with Visual Unity expanding globally, what kind of cultural awareness have you guys had to take?
Well, culture, so from the standpoint that you're coming from in terms of the legacy of Visual Connection, where we were, and Visual Unity, where we are today. So there's a couple of things that we were working towards, and that starts at the top. Okay, so the CEO, the general manager, and the managers underneath the CEO help drive that culture. So if we believe the company needs to migrate into a product-led culture, then that comes from the top, and that then facilitates into the rest of the staff in the company, and that helps drive the culture. And it's not just a belief in what you believe the company needs to go, but everything that you end up doing, all the activities, all the strategies, all the objectives, all the actions, all are around the, let's say, intangible vision of the culture that you're trying to develop within the company. And I believe, and what I've seen from the cultures that I've worked with, is that when it comes from the top, then the staff then buy into that culture eventually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So Visual Unity, only 2 years old. What kind of leader do you think a company like that needs in order to be successful?
So what type of leaders do we have? I mean, part of our vision is to go international. Okay, we as a company have been very much focused on the domestic market being Czech and Slovakia. And around the time that I came on board around 2 years ago, and even before that, about a year before that, the vision of the company was to go international. So part of the hiring process in the senior management team was hiring staff and leaders that will bring the company international. So the head of sales, the head of marketing, the chief operating officer, all have, and the CEO, all have an international experience and vision for that company. Position the company to the standards that Western companies and Western competitors are positioned and really up our game in terms of how we need to offer our products and services at the level of the American competitors, for example, that we have. And part of that two-year activity that we began when even before I started was to bring in an investment in order to help us to expand internationally. And in fact, actually about a week ago, we just signed a Series A round of investment for $7.2 million into Visual Unity, and that $7.2 million is going to help us to expand internationally. And there was a lot of work with the senior management team in order to bring the right information necessary for the investors to understand our vision and how we want to take the company forward.
Okay, very nice. How would you say the leadership would be different in a company like Visual Unity, a brand new company, as opposed to like a large multinational company that's been around for decades? Do you think there has to be a different leadership approach?
Yeah, I think so. I think that part of the challenge that we have as a startup, we actually, being as Visual Unity as an entity for the last 3 years, we are really a startup type organization. And companies that have been around for 20 years, I've worked with the Motorola's of the world, and when I was working for VeriSign, I started in VeriSign when there were 6 employees internationally. There were 50 employees in the US, and they just bought Network Solutions in 2000, which brought them to 500 employees. And that transition migrated them from a startup of 50 people to a corporation of 500 people. And I saw right away that how that transition affected employees that were really on the startup path and wanted to work for startups versus other types of employees which have a different skill set that wanted to focus on a corporate type environment. And I guess one of the biggest differences is really in process. In a startup, you're running after opportunities and you're closing opportunities, and there isn't necessarily a process in order to facilitate that whole sales and marketing initiative. But once you move into a corporation and you start to grow to hundreds of employees, from 50 to hundreds of employees, then you need process in order to scale. And that transition happens in a few areas. So startups are, let's say, up to 10 million US dollars, and then you start to move into a corporation at about 100 million, and then over 100 million, you're definitely a corporation. And there are employees that are really good at taking the company from 0 to $10 million that have the startup mentality. And then there are really good employees that take the company from 10 million to 100 million. And in many cases, there are different types of employees. And to transition to that 100 million, then you need this mindset of process and structure in order to start to scale the company as you have many more employees and you need to organize them much differently.
Okay, very nice. So my next question is, being around for only 3 years, I'm sure not everything has been flawless and amazing. So I was just wondering, has there been a time where you think you guys have made a mistake, and why that mistake happened, and what you guys would do different in the future?
Well, let's look at a recent example. We opened up in an exhibition in the U.S. called NAB. It's National Association of Broadcasters. It's the biggest broadcast exhibition in the world. So there's around 100,000 visitors per year. It's in Las Vegas. And we decided in conjunction with this investment that we were going to go to Las Vegas and present at NAB. And one of the challenges that you have being a startup is finances, right? How do you juggle the type of money that you have to invest in marketing and sales versus the return on investment to making sure that turns into some revenue down the road? And NAB, the type of event that NAB is, it's a sizable investment. These type of investments for startups, for the size that NAB is, can as much crush a company as it can in catapulting that company into the next phase of their development. So part of our goals and strategy for NAB was to generate 1,000 visitors to our stand, and then to convert those 1,000 visitors into 100 leads, and those leads into some part of our pipeline to generate revenue and get the return on investment for NAB. So what we ended up achieving was 2,000 leads, or 2,000 visitors, and around 200 qualified opportunities. And because the event just finished around 3 weeks ago, we're still churning that, and there's a sales cycle. But we overachieved on our goals, and that's always the big thing that makes the investors and even the managers sweat, is making sure that we have all our ducks in a row and that we're organized to do the best that we can at an event such as NAB and maximize our exposure. And I think that's what we actually did.
Okay, very nice. So kind of building on that then, I know you said that finances are often an issue for startups. So how would you guys find yourself competing with the large multinational corporations?
So competition is an interesting one, and I would start by saying that this market is around 8 years old, generally speaking, about 8 years old. A lot of the first mover American companies started around 2004, 2005, 2006. And that's where the OTT market started to come out. And as with any new type of market, there are a lot of companies that offer these type of services initially until the market starts to consolidate. So right now you're looking at 100, 150 OVP, OTT vendors, OVP being online video platform and OTT being over-the-top platform. OVP is kind of a scaled-down version of OTT. And you have a lot of these competitors kind of vying for a market position. And the analogy that I would give is in the car market. Around the turn of the 19th century, there were around 100 car manufacturers. Okay, that was basically the beginning of the car manufacturing life cycle. And then over 100 years, we started to consolidate those car manufacturers into, let's say, 5 major car manufacturers and then maybe 15 smaller ones. But the market consolidated. And the OTT market is really at that initial stage where we have 150 competitors. And now we're starting to see consolidation. We're starting to see some very large companies buy and acquire these startups and bring the OTT capabilities into their platform. But generally speaking, being where we are today as a startup, we need to be very focused in terms of how we generate revenue. And one of the ways that we can do that is, first of all, recognizing where the market opportunity is in terms of broadcast space or online retailers or anybody that wants to serve video. The good news is that there's a big ocean of opportunity, and that's why there's so many competitors. But for us to go after what they call low-hanging fruit in terms of revenue, and then seed specific markets so that when the market starts to catch this big wave, which we believe hasn't yet happened, we're still at the beginning of that wave, then we'll have seeded that market with a local presence of sales and marketing and technical expertise, and then we then ride that wave. Because once the wave has happened and you're at the top of that crest of that wave, and then you want to get into the market, it's much more expensive. Yeah. So right now, we believe it's still early. Market is only about 8 years old, and it's growing internationally. There's a different strategy for markets like the US, which are quite established in terms of OTT evolution, but there's a lot of growth in terms of the Eastern markets, which are now getting into OTT for the first time.
Okay. So I know you said it's a very young market, things are always changing, technology is always improving, there's so many innovations. So how do you guys as a company stay on top of everything and make sure that you guys are always going to be at the front?
Well, one of the things is that we believe that we have excellent technical expertise here in the Czech Republic, and that brings a lot of good technical expertise into Visual Unity. And there are excellent programmers in this region. There is a lot of expertise in terms of digital video, and one of the testaments to that is that Czech Republic started streaming video in 1998, and we, the predecessor of where we were as Visual Connection, was the first company to deliver streaming video in the Czech Republic. And 1998, you guys were quite young, but in 1998 there was modem technology and not very good technology to deliver video at all. But as a first mover, the Czech Republic was delivering and streaming video basically at the same time as the US market. So we were like a little oasis in the European, Central Europe, doing streaming video in parallel with the US. And that experience brings us to where we are today in terms of getting into 4K video technology, which is 4 times more than high definition, and other types of leading edge technologies, because that experience builds on itself to where we are today. And there's such a collective of technical expertise in this country, then we can bring a lot of that expertise into this company and help enhance the product portfolio that we have.
Okay. Now I know Visual Unity wasn't really around for the '08 financial crisis, but I know there's a lot of like pessimism with China right now and where that economy is going to be heading. So I was just wondering, what do you guys do as a company to kind of protect yourself from possible recessions and downturns in the economy?
I don't think really anybody can protect themselves from a downturn in an economy. There was a recession in the Czech Republic as much as there was in other parts of Europe, and it's tough for everybody. Yeah. One of the areas where we can survive is in the space that we are in terms of the growth of OTT and the requirements of our broadcast clients still needing to build out their infrastructures. But the broadcast industry just has as much challenges in a recession as any other industry. Yeah. So I don't think that there was anything specific that we could do in order to protect ourselves, but just to be diligent in terms of staying the course of the strategy, making sure that clients are happy, and continue to build a fantastic product as the market starts to readjust and recover.
Okay. One of the topics we were just talking about in class last week was risk management and crisis management. So I was kind of wondering what Visual Unity's philosophy was on risk taking and how you guys evaluate risk, and if you guys would consider yourself to be a more risky or more conservative company.
Well, as a startup, you're basically don't really have a risk management strategy. Yeah. I think most startups are so busy looking after, looking for new business, that risk management is all part of a corporate culture, not a startup culture. But it doesn't mean that you're risk averse. You're still focusing your energy on generating revenue where revenue can be generated in terms of low-hanging fruits and so on. But a management strategy for risk really doesn't exist in that case. If we were to say that there is some sort of strategy in terms of risk management, it's all about making sure that you're spending your money where you believe will have the highest return on investment. And it's really as simple as that.
Okay, very nice. So I know you said it is a very up-and-coming industry. So do you think there will be a lot of room for upcoming companies in this industry and other startups?
So there's 2 types of companies that are in OTT. There are companies that come from a broadcast background, and there's companies that come from an internet background. So the companies that come from a broadcast background, such as ourselves, we look at OTT as an entertainment platform, right? So because broadcast is entertainment, and we're bringing entertainment to the world, and now we're bringing entertainment through the world over the internet, okay? The OTT providers or the OVP providers that are looking at this space from an internet perspective, they see this space as just another piece of content, maybe another file, for example. And that file is a video. So you're going to serve that video to your subscriber almost like you're serving a file from a Dropbox or from an iDrive or iCloud type service, but it's just like another file. And that's the difference between looking at OTT from an entertainment perspective versus OTT from an enterprise perspective. In an enterprise perspective or internet perspective, you're looking at that delivering video as if it's just another piece of content. It could be versus an Excel file or a Word file, whereas we look at OTT from an entertainment perspective, right? And that's a different ball game. But the reality is that there's two types of clients. There are clients in the broadcast space, there are content aggregators, there are OTT providers like Netflix, for example, that we mentioned before, and the likes of YouTube, which are serving video and premium content to subscribers, and we serve that client base. But there's a whole new opportunity of clients in the enterprise space, such as online retailers, that also need to serve video, but they're serving video in order to sell their other products online, right? So I just bought a Manfrotto tripod a few months back, and on the Manfrotto website, there are videos that talk about how the tripod works and all the different functionality, and there's some testimonials and so on. Those type of videos aren't being served from an entertainment perspective. I mean, to a certain extent, they are, but they're served in order to sell the products that they have on their online retail store. So that is a different type of client, but also an opportunity for us to use our platform to deliver video in the context of selling products on a retail store, for example.
Okay. Now looking forward, the next 5 years for Visual Unity, what do you think will be the biggest challenge for you guys?
I think part of the big challenge is going international. So we opened a U.S. presence last year in Los Angeles, and we're looking to move offices on the West Coast, and using the investment in order to seed that market, and international expansion in terms of how we build out the Middle East. There is opportunities in Africa, African continent, and how we choose selected markets in Europe in order to have a seed presence in those markets. We also, just a few months ago, opened an office in Thailand. So we're seeding that market as well. And from one perspective, it may look like we're actually diluting our resources, but when you're seeding the market, you're not putting a massive financial investment into those markets. You're having a single footprint of sales staff and using headquarters in order to help deliver that solution. And then as we start to close deals, and we have a lighthouse account, they're called like lighthouse accounts, the first deal that you close, that starts to justify further expansion into those regions. But at the moment, I think the big challenge in the next 5 years is really making sure that we seed the markets which will generate the most revenue for us, and making sure that the sales strategy allows us to get those low-hanging fruits and maximize our return on investment.
Okay, very nice. And now my final question. I know with a lot of startups, you see a lot of the times it's like dropouts out of college and people who maybe thought they were too smart or just had an idea and decided to leave school. So I was wondering, what do you think the importance of a university education is in the business world today?
Wow, that's a weighted question. I mean, I suppose I'm kind of biased because I have an engineering degree, and you see examples which are, let's say, the famous examples of dropouts from college which have become famous. And I think for every one of those that becomes famous and successful, there are 10,000 students that finished college and were successful, right? So I think that it's kind of difficult when you have somebody that's quite young that sees these isolated examples of, let's say, a college dropout that becomes successful so much that they become famous, and that becomes their benchmark for, oh, maybe I can do that as well, right? Yeah. But there are so many, let's say, silent successful people that have higher education that are just as successful, but maybe they're not famous, right? And I mean, I have 2 kids, so part of my job as a parent is to instill in them the importance of education. And one of the things that, for example, in my case, when I was finishing high school, I was thinking, should I be a photographer or should I be an engineer, right? So I talked to some photographers, and and I talked to some engineers, and I saw how the photographers really struggle, in their industry. And that's fine. I thought, okay, maybe I could struggle as well. But then I thought to myself, why don't I become an engineer and then do photography? Yeah. Right? I could still enjoy photography as an engineer, and I enjoyed engineering as well. But that was kind of my trade-off. I could still enjoy photography as a hobby, maybe not necessarily as a career, but it still would fulfill that side of my interest. So I'm not sure if that's kind of answering your question, but my feeling is, finish higher education. There are so many thousands of people that are using a bachelor's as a baseline, and then looking for work and that's your competition. When I was finishing school, a bachelor's was basically the baseline, and then that's how you're going to compete in the job force with other people that have bachelor's. 20 years down the road, now it's about competing against people that have MBAs and postgraduate degrees, and that's your competition now, right? So I didn't have that type of competition like the kids have today. And that's what I think you have to look at is who is your competition and the type of industry that you want to go in. Maybe you're going to be a prodigy and you can drop out and you don't need those final years of school to do what you want to do. Yeah. But I think that that is such a small fraction compared to the rest of the world, that I would prefer education.
Definitely. Okay. I believe that is all. Do you guys have any other questions? No? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
It's been a pleasure meeting you.
Thanks, Cole. Appreciate it.